Hey, welcome back to Coffee with Content Creators podcast. My name is Balasabas. That's me. I'm the host of this podcast and really glad to have you here. I wanted to answer a question that's come up a few times since I've started my Substack account. For those of you that aren't familiar, Substack is a platform that actually allows you to create a blog, slash email newsletter slash also your podcast, and a lot of really well-known creators, writers, journalists, experts, coaches, like a lot of people are using Substack. And I was following this one Substack. That's what you call it. It's like when I say I'm following this Substack, it's like saying I'm following this YouTube channel or this podcast. So I was subscribed to this Substack called Lenny's Newsletter, and it's an awesome, for me anyway. It's a very relevant topic about product marketing and tech stuff. Okay, tech marketing stuff, tech stuff, SaaS stuff. You know, there's lots of like folks from Google and stuff that are interviewed on that Substack, because it has a podcast, it's got a YouTube channel, which is a video podcast, and so on. Anyways, started really thinking about, might be a really good platform for me. So, I wanted to kind of share some things, because a lot of people have reached out to me, a lot of friends of mine and that are content creators said, hey, what do you think of Substack? Been thinking about it. And so I thought I'd just share my thoughts and some of my, my stack in terms of how I use Substack. Where's my podcast still hosted now? Am I using the Substack podcast? What am I doing with it? All that stuff. So that's what really this episode is going to be about. But before we dive into that, you'll notice if you're watching the video version of this on YouTube or on Substack that I have switched my background a little bit. And so I actually shifted my my desk here, still same office, still home office and everything, still same place. I'm just switched things around a little bit. You're probably going to see eventually at some point a shelf back there, that tree, which by the way is not real. Some people think it's real. Could never keep a tree alive this long, a real one, or a plant this long. That plant is going to be probably moved out here at some point. But yeah, that's why you guys notice. Also, I've been using this Adobe pillow, and this is not a product placement thing. But it was really just a perfect size, just to put it here and prop this up. So if you're watching the YouTube video and you're like, Rob, stop fidgeting around, just trying to get this right, So anyhow, it is recording this on January 15th, 2023. Halfway through the first month of the year. Really excited. Exciting things happening at work, at Uscreen. I'm going to be in Las Vegas and Orlando at the end of January for a couple of conferences. I'm going to be going to the Creator Economy Live conference in Las Vegas, and hopefully I'm actually hoping to set up a bit of a Uscreen meetup. So if you're a Uscreen customer, if you're a partner, if you want to talk shop about memberships, you're welcome to come. All right. Whether you're a creator, you're an industry expert, you're a talent manager, you're a business manager for creators, would love to have you come down. If you are just in town, you're a creator, would love to see you. All right. If you've been a guest of the podcast, of course, would love to see you. You've been listening to the podcast, would love to see you at some point. So please message me either on Instagram or LinkedIn, and let's connect. We'd love to line up some type of thing there to see you, whether it's coffee or lunch or breakfast or dinner. It is going to be a very tight schedule for me. As I get older, I was telling a friend of mine actually, as I get older, I tend not to stretch these work trips longer than they need to. When I was younger, a few years ago, probably more like 5-6 years ago, maybe almost 7 years ago, when I started traveling for work, I really wanted to sort of stretch things out and add a day or two in the beginning, at the end of the trip, and do a couple extra things while I'm in town. But then, as I got to travel more for work, I just realized, I wanted to, I started valuing my time a bit more, valuing my time at home. And so I really still want to travel. I still want to get out and see folks in person. It's a great thing for me. It's really actually mentally a really good thing as well to just see people and see partners and customers in person. I love that part of my job. But, I've started taking red-eye flights, red-eye flights to get back home and, come back, in the evening at the end of the day, at the last day of the conference, rather than staying an extra day and going home the following day, that sort of thing. I've started to do those things, but I want to make sure that I see as many people as I possibly can. So I'm going to be in Vegas. Then after that, I'm going straight to Orlando, and I'm going to actually be speaking at PodFest. So I'm going to be talking all about, revenue streams and how to make money and all that stuff for content creators at PodFest. So excited for that. And so if you're in Orlando, let's connect. Same thing. Message me on Instagram, LinkedIn. Let's connect. And I would love to see you there. All right. We've got a meetup that we're trying to put together there as well for Uscreen. But if you can't make that, let's plan to get together somewhere else. All right. We can meet up at the hotel lobby or something. But yeah, we'll figure that out. But message me, and that way we can get a conversation and figure things out. All right. All right. So let's talk about Substack. So Substack, if you guys just go to substack.com, Substack, one word, .com, you'll find Substack. It's free. It's a free platform, right? And so you can do that. So here, take one step back. I used to use MailerLite for my email newsletter. That's where my email list lived, MailerLite, okay? I have no blog, so I didn't have a blog. There's 3 components here with Substack. There's your blog, your email newsletter, and your podcast. So to give you an idea. So my email newsletter was on MailerLite. I didn't have a blog, my podcast is hosted on anchor.fm, okay? And so started to think about, okay, what do I do with these things? Do I move my podcast over to Substack? Because Substack does have a podcast feature. I thought of it. I actually did it technically for a couple hours. Then I decided to move it back to Anchor. The reason why I did that with the podcast aspect is that I really like Anchor's feature where you can record and also cut and edit your podcast episodes, your clips. You can put background music. You can upload a video, and it'll extract the audio and turn it into an audio podcast. Anchor is just a really user-friendly platform for actually creating the podcast episodes. I don't have to edit the podcast on, say, GarageBand or something else, and then upload it to the podcast hosting. I can do it right on Anchor, and it can actually create clips that I would just keep there. Okay, and so for that reason, I moved my podcast hosting and everything, the RSS feed and everything, where Apple and Spotify pointed to and everything. I moved it back to Anchor, and that's where it is now. Okay, so my podcast, I tested out Substack, see what the vibe was, see how it felt. Wasn't super happy with it. Not even just that. It's also just way easier. I found that I'm going to be using Anchor for actually creating the podcast episode. So we moved it back to Anchor. Okay, so that's the podcast. There's 2 other things left here: the blog and the newsletter. The newsletter was an easy one, easy decision. Okay. With Substack, when you create a post, right, you can create essentially a blog post, and you can embed your YouTube videos and all that, your podcast episode and everything, text, images, all of that. And then you can tell it to email to your email list, right? It'll email that actual blog post. It'll turn it into an email newsletter that your subscribers will get. So easy decision for me to move my email newsletter from MailerLite over to Substack. Essentially, I just exported my email list, and then I imported that list into Substack. Very easy. The blog, I didn't have a blog, so there was really nothing to lose there. There was really no hard decision. Substack was really easy to use, and so I created essentially Rob's newsletter, which is the blog. And so you can actually check my Substack. I'll have a link in the description or in the show notes. It's just balasabas.substack.com. By the way, you can also create a custom domain, or you can use a custom domain for your Substack page. Okay. And so that's essentially what I have. So now what I have is I have my newsletter and my blog hosted on Substack, and then my podcast is still hosted on Anchor. Now, every episode, if, for example, this episode will become a post on Substack. And actually, I'll try to share my screen here. For those of you that are watching this on YouTube, then you can see the video version. Okay, so here's an example of a Substack post that I have, right? So you see here, it's got the title, all that. This video, it's got text and then a YouTube video that's embedded, right? So I have the video podcast version that I upload to YouTube, my YouTube channel, and I embed that YouTube video into the Substack post. Scroll down. Now I also have the the Spotify podcast also embedded into the Substack post, right? If people want to just listen to it on Substack, right? And remember again that this episode is a blog post that's emailed to all of my email subscribers, and so this way they can see this and they can choose, do they want to watch the YouTube version of this podcast, or do they want to go and listen on audio on Spotify. What I may also do, I find that the two most popular podcasting platforms that my listeners listen in on is on Apple and Spotify, so I may also embed the Apple player in here, but I just like the look of the Spotify embed. Okay, now you can also scroll down here, and there's a couple of calls to action here that you can just embed directly from Substack. Now, one thing to note is that there is a free version for my content on Substack. You can, if you want to, you can subscribe, you can read all of the posts and everything. You can listen to the podcast, the audio podcast, and also watch the video podcast on my YouTube channel, all for free. There is a paid version, just essentially it's $5 a month, and what that gives you is access to my Discord community. Okay, and so if if there's a subscriber or a listener or viewer, part of the audience there that wants to support my content, then they can do it that way as well, and they get to be involved in a really cool community as a benefit of that, right? As a perk of being a member. And so for yourself, you can also create a paid version on Substack, a paid subscription, and you can make multiple paid subscriptions if you like, depending on what you want to give away as a perk or offer as a perk to those paid subscribers. Okay, so there's also a monetization channel here for folks for using Substack. Okay, and so there you have it. Hopefully that really helps. I just want to kind of share how I'm using Substack right now. This, again, can change, but I just really like that Substack is so user-friendly in terms of creating a blog, creating a newsletter that's pretty easy to essentially like send out on a more regular basis. When I did have my MailerLite newsletter, it was like a typical newsletter platform, and it was a little bit more work to always create new newsletters every single week. And so this is more organic. It's more of a natural workflow for me. I'm kind of building out a template here for every post. You'll see text with a YouTube video embedded into it, and also a Spotify audio podcast embedded into it. And so it's pretty straightforward, kind of a rinse and repeat template for every podcast episode. And so again, I'm just fairly new to using Substack, but so far so good. I really do like the platform. I can't say much about the podcasting platform itself other than it's pretty good. The only reason I'm not using it is I just like Anchor's creation tool a little bit better. it's just easier for me. Now, if I had someone that was creating my podcast episodes and editing them and everything, I would probably consider using the Substack podcast platform, just so everything is all in one place, right? I think it's a lot easier sometimes to just have everything in one place. That way there's less things that you need to worry about, and you can, but for me, this works, Substack with Anchor, that combination is pretty straightforward for me. For somebody that's just like me, that's just a solo creator, I don't have a team creating for me and everything on my personal channel. So this is a really seamless, low lift, very little work, sort of process for me. And so if you have any questions, if you would like more of a deep dive into how I'm creating the podcast episodes, how I'm uploading, optimizing, creating the Substack post, doing the embedding and everything, let me know. I'm always really happy to create these tutorial videos to help you as a content creator. Again, just whether it's just saving you time to be more consistent, right? Taking away some of those little intricacies and the fanciness of creating content, really just sharing your message. That's really sort of my approach to content creation. Is just I want to share the message. I want to share the tips, the tools, the way that I'm doing things, and it may not be the fanciest production, but hopefully it's helpful to the listener, to the viewer, to the person that is listening on the other end. All right, so again, that is my Substack, somewhat of a review, I guess, as well. And so hopefully you enjoyed that. Now, make sure you go and subscribe to Substack, right? The free version, if you feel compelled to. Make sure you can also join our community by subscribing to the paid version of the Substack. And again, I think it's like $5 a month or $50 a year or something. It's really nothing. It's a cup of coffee. I hate that analogy, but yeah, so hopefully that is helpful. And thanks for hanging out with me. I think we are now into I want to say we are episode 74 of the podcast. I also forgot to say thank you to our sponsor and just the people that are supporting this podcast, and also YouTube, my YouTube channel, which is StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard, Julie and Joanne and all the folks over at StreamYard. I'm going to be seeing them at PodFest. So shout out to them. Thank you for sponsoring and supporting the podcast. Really love you guys over there. Make sure you go check them out. Install StreamYard. There's a free version. StreamYard is my go-to when it comes to all things live streaming. All right, live streaming. It's all about, I use StreamYard. That's my go-to. And so there you have it. Thank you, StreamYard. Thank you for listening or watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.